that. Because it seems like everybody has one of these nowadays, the iPads. I'm
Yeah.
pointing at, you probably won't see it really well what I'm pointing at right now, but it seems like these anything. It's not necessarily iPad, it's iPhones too, you know.
Everything.
And I'm going to be the first person to say that for the longest time I was that quintessential I hate Apple products thing.
Yeah.
And now everything I have is Apple products.
Yeah,
And
I was
it's
like
because
that.
what we do, like everything on this is designed to work for being a musician or being like a video editor or
Yeah.
being an artist, you know, at all. Like it seems like this is just designed to work so much better for what we're doing. Like,
I'm right on the same page because several years, well, right about the time you met me, I had nothing Apple. I use Windows for Pro Tools and it was a big machine and stuff. But over the past 5 years, I've gone to where every device that I have is an Apple product. Like I go from the watch to my phone to my iPad to my MacBook. I have an iMac, at home, and I've got a Mac Mini in the studio, and just everything, and it just works all so well together. It's freaking Apple.
right? Well,
Why are you so good?
That's exactly. Well, that's when I was against the idea of Apple. It wasn't necessarily because I guess my point of view wasn't quite correct on that. You know what I'm saying? Like when I wasn't about it, it was I was coming from the world of like selling cell phones, and I always built my own computers and stuff like that. And I just look at what the price was for some of this Apple stuff.
Yep.
And then that was expensive as hell for one, and then for two, it pissed me off just like how like closed down and inaccessible like the iOS programs were, or not programs, but just the operating system of like iPhone or iPad. Like you didn't have a file explorer, and that's just like being able to get to like, your documents on anything.
Yeah.
Instead, I mean, they do it so that like each app has its own ability to get to its stuff, but just the ability to get in and really get into the nitty gritty and just find stuff as you needed to, like that. That was one thing where I was just like, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But and that was totally not looking at the fact that like, hey, this app right here is going to make your life so much easier for what you're trying to do. Like,
and I always thought about it like, okay, so a PC, like the PC world was like an old Chevy. You could like tear it apart and put it back together or whatever. And Apple was like, a Prius.
Tesla, dude. Yeah.
A Prius. And I'm not a Prius fan, but
you say that now.
But I dig the Apple stuff.
Might be
man.
driving around in your Prius with your Mac,
Not me. No. I draw the line at the computers.
I said that same thing, man. I said that same thing. I was like, what? Now I got my Android phone. Yeah, I don't need that. Then I bought an iPad. I'm like, okay, like, because it was awesome I used that for my metronome. I used to use Dr. Beat back in the days, like Boss Dr. Beat. That was like how I do all my metronome stuff, and those would have a memory of like 8 songs that you could do on there.
Yeah.
Well, especially when I started playing with you, I think I got 300, 400 songs in our playlist on my metronome back there.
Yeah.
Like that would take so long to use a Dr. Beat. Just like, okay, look through my book. Okay, it's this beat, and then I gotta have an 8th note on there, and then like that would have taken so long, as opposed to what I do with my iPad is I just open that app, search for the song, hit play, and then we're on to the next song.
Yeah.
And like that was my first thing. That brought me down that rabbit hole of Apple there.
Yeah.
And then from there, I started recording and stuff with you, and tried doing it on the PC stuff, and just a pain in the butt, man, because you have to like switch all these audio drivers and stuff.
Because in the PC world it's like, okay, so to take Windows for example, it's not built for a specific machine. It's a umbrella for like many different kind of hardware configurations and stuff. So yeah, it's going to be difficult. Apple's different because it's all such like an in-house thing. And that's what I dig about it, man. Is like the quality control is off the charts. I mean, not
Sometimes.
so much lately.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're like pretty much all of the MacBooks are not allowed on planes right now.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah,
all of them.
Yeah. You can tell them why?
Because their batteries are exploding. Well, it's not even all of them. It's some of them, and it's like very few. Right now I sound like I'm an Apple apologist, but but still, like the amount of batteries that are getting messed up, like really, it's a little bit of an overreaction from what I understand. But I think what probably has got everybody all spooked is that there's like actual video of this stuff happening.
Yeah, well, all it takes is one time, somebody getting hurt one time, then you get the reputation for that kind of thing. But yeah, I've definitely become a big Apple fan, and the other thing that like I haven't like quite pulled over to yet is I'm still using Pro Tools.
Yeah.
You know, and I love Pro Tools. It's what I started on. It's, you know, it's I've used it for the past 25 years. Avid has like totally like destroyed my confidence in you know, their products, you know, over the past couple of years. And
Avid is who makes Pro Tools.
yeah, and well, it's who owns it now.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of starting to kind of think about Logic a little bit, you know, as an Apple product. You know,
well, that's what Brian's doing. Logic now too.
The learning curve is a pain in the ass because, you know, I'm old now, and, you know, I've been doing a certain thing for a long time, and I know Pro Tools in and out. And
yeah, but you knew Windows before. You know, you're
very true. So I know that it's going to take me some time to get over. But okay, so, you know, a couple years ago, I upgraded to my next Pro Tools DAW, which was the 2018 version.
Yeah.
Which I spent almost like $650 on. And I didn't buy the monthly subscription that like they're pushing really hard right now. I bought the perpetual license. And what sucks about that is I paid $650 for a DAW that only stays updated for 1 year.
Yeah.
You know, and in order to get any of the current updates, I have to buy a subscription, which is $30 a month, just to get updates for Pro Tools.
That's stupid.
Now, and you can pay $300 for Logic, and you get all the same functionality. It's a learning curve.
And you get the upgrades.
And you get the upgrades because it's an Apple product on your Apple device. So, you know, that's got me screwed up a little bit. You know, I've been a Pro Tools guy my whole life, you know, since it's been around, and I will defend that forever probably, but
well,
that's a big deal.
Here's what kind of brought me over to, besides the perpetual license stuff, that wasn't quite happening by the time I started learning how to record and all that fun stuff. What really got me kind of turned off of Pro Tools was okay, you let me borrow that Digi 002, which back in the day, Pro Tools only worked with very specific interfaces.
Yeah,
because it was designed by a company called DigiDesign, who also made this DigiDesign 002. It's called Digi 002.
That was their I/O box.
That was their I/O, which means like your inputs and outputs, your preamps,
your
headphones,
interface.
like everything. So you're able to record and actually make the computer understand what it is that you're playing. You know, because you're converting audio to digital basically is what that is, and then digital back to audio when you're listening to it. When I was messing around with that, he gave me a version of like Pro Tools LE, and
LE8 is what it is.
LE8, and then I was messing around with that, and like it was ridiculous the amount of stuff you had to do to make it so that Pro Tools would even see the interface. Like you had to turn the interface on and then open the app, and then sometimes that wouldn't work, so then you have to quit out of the app, turn off the interface, turn the interface back on, turn on the app, and then it would work.
Yeah, well, a lot of that wasn't, you know, so much the like the device or the computer. A lot of that was the FireWire technology, because that 002 worked on FireWire.
I would say that, except when I opened it up in Logic, Logic saw it every single time, and I didn't have to do any craziness to make it. So I was just kind of like, I don't know if I like this.
Yeah, it's never been perfect, you know, and I've had problems up the butt, you know, for as long as I've been using Pro Tools. But, you know, like I said, when I was in school, you know, that's what I learned on was Pro Tools, and that was all that was there, you know, because I think I was in school in 1998, so right before like the consumer version of Pro Tools like actually came on the market, when it was still like the TDM, the big pro stuff, you know, like the 888 interfaces and stuff, and you know, so it was a very pro level kind of thing, you know, which is still way subpar than what we already have like on the consumer level now. But, you know, it's just, I don't know, you learn something, and then you always think the first thing that you have an experience with is always going to be the best one.
Yeah.
But like having
Windows.
Yeah. But like, you know, having Avid, like in the past couple of years, like give all their Pro Tools users like a big middle finger.
Yeah.
And expect them to like pay something. You know, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal if, you know, your computer wasn't like, you know, if I had one computer that was dedicated just for recording, it would be fine, because I would never have to update the operating system.
Yeah.
Or do any of that stuff to stay current if it was just the recording machine. But a guy like me who has, you know, devices that I use for lots of things, lots of personal reasons, and, you know, just for like opening Google, you know, but, you know, you have to continually update the operating system for all the new stuff that's coming out. But that screws up like your, you know, previous version of your DAW, your Pro Tools, you know, and then so you have to have the updates so it stays current with the operating system, and then they expect you to not only get the $700 out of you for the product, but then they want you to pay $30 a month or whatever that is a year just to stay current.
Yep.
What other company does that? Like
a lot of companies. Like that's Adobe.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Their whole creative suite, they're doing that. It's like stupid. It's like $50 a month or something like that. If you want to be able to use everything.
That's what I mean. Is like it seems like all those production companies that are, you hear that?
I heard something.
Is somebody trying to break in here?
Maybe. I thought it was Simon trying to talk to us here.
It could be. So yeah, it's ridiculous that like all these production companies like are catering only towards like the big end.
Yeah,
like, studios.
that's kind of what it feels like. Like it wouldn't feel. It's almost like the new Mac Pro that came out.
Yeah,
it's like if you bought a full balls to the wall Mac Pro with 1.5 terabytes of RAM and shit like that.
Yeah,
it costs like $45,000.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But if you're a big company like Pixar, like $45,000 is just gonna be like, hey, is this gonna get the job done that we need done to make their next $1 billion movie?
Yeah,
I mean that makes sense. But like me and you going in there and being like, oh my, 45,000! I don't even think my car's worth that. Like that's like a third of my house. Maybe like a quarter of what my house costs.
Yeah.
But I guess the point I'm making is that it is going towards that.
It's frustrating. It sucks too because I've been a loyal, avid DigiDesign person forever, and then to like be tossed off to the side because the little bit amount of money that I put into recording like doesn't matter to them or something.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. It's whatever. I'm just being a crybaby about it.
Crotchety.
So I'm looking into Logic, obviously because that's an Apple product and I know it's going to work well on my iOS or my Mac devices.
Yeah.
I'm also looking at Studio One from PreSonus.
Very good
I've heard a lot of good things
Studio
about
One.
that.
Studio One, I messed around with that a little bit. It's not as intuitive to me. I've heard a lot of people that are in the Pro Tools realm have a little bit easier time going to that.
Yeah. And I guess I don't even know. I'm going to sound really stupid right now for tech guys that are listening, but like Cakewalk, is that still
Cakewalk?
Cakewalk,
yeah. Well, that
it's Cubase. Is that the same?
Cubase? That's different altogether. Cakewalk was owned by
Sonic Foundry.
They were owned by Gibson.
Oh, and
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, Gibson got rid of Cakewalk. They stopped supporting it like either last year or the year before. So I don't know if I'd be getting into Cakewalk if I were you.
I guess it was Cubase is what I was.
Cubase is owned by what is that? Cubase is owned by they're an interface company. Why can't I think of who makes Cubase? Cubase.
So I totally hear somebody like at the garage door right now. Do you hear that?
Let me in.
I can totally hear it.
I don't hear anybody right now.
Maybe it's Ethan or
it's possible. Let's see if I can figure out who makes this. Steinberg, dude.
Oh, Steinberg, yeah.
Steinberg makes it. Those guys make their own interface. What's a pain in the butt about that though is like you have to have their version of an iLock in order for the DAW to
They have
work.
their own version of iLock?
Yeah. Then it's literally just for like the DAW to work.
iLock is a software key, by the way. You have to have it plugged in order for your.
It's a hardware software key.
Stupid.
It's really dumb.
Crap has gotten so complicated. So I'm kind of waiting until like I can get a break in some of these projects that I'm working on for us and Ashley's and Josh's stuff. If I have a break with that, then I'll start making the transition. But
I'll help you with it, man. I'm more than happy to help you with that.
I don't know. I'm a terrible student. It's gonna be one of those things where I have to lock myself in a bedroom for 7 weeks.
Yeah, well, I had to do that when I was just even learning how to do it. I remember like when you first let me like use that stuff, I was just like, all right, I'm ready to go now. There's the record button. Push that. And I start playing and like nothing happens. Like I don't see anything happening on the screen. I'm like, hey, Donnie, what do I? Why do I not see anything recording? I see the thing moving, but I don't. I see the playhead moving, but I don't see anything recording.
I remember.
Did you record enable, Odie? I'm like, what are you even talking about right now? Like, because you need to go and like each mic that you set up, you have to like tell the program that's the mic you want to record in this particular go through. I had no idea.
Yep.
So that was fun. I mean, like just like that's like the little things that are huge things that you have to know for all this stuff.
You know what I want to do? Like, when we get back, we're leaving for Minnesota next week to go play with Lone Star up Minnesota. But when we get back, when the next podcast we do, I want to start like talking about like some of the other like old recording things that I have.
Oh yeah.
And maybe bring those in. I don't know why I have this. I don't use it, but I have to have it because it's nostalgic to me. But I have the DigiDesign 001 Pro Tools version.
Yeah, didn't you get like a G4 with that too?
Yeah, I got a G4 computer with that. And I don't use it, but it's nice to have because I had one. I remember like when that 001 first hit the market, like I stood in line at Guitar Center like the day that it came out. There was a line.
There was a line.
Yeah. And I got
awesome.
one like the day they came out, and I was so excited about that.
How much was it? Do you remember?
Yes, I want to say $700.
That's like stupid cheap compared to what all that stuff was before, though.
Yeah, it wasn't like crazy. I mean, it was a lot of money for me, but it wasn't crazy.
Was that USB, or did you have to have a card?
That was proprietary, so it had a PCI card that connected to the unit, and you got an impressive amount of like inputs and outputs with this thing. So
really?
You got 2 onboard preamps, which were terrible, but they were on there. But with the analog input and the digital input and outputs, you had 18 inputs at one time you could use with this, and then 18 outputs.
That's not bad for early 2000s there.
No, and that was 1998, 99.
90s.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember when they first announced that they were going to do this, they for people who are interested, you could order the VHS tape, like an introductory to it.
Yeah.
Like a year before they let it out, and so me and my buddy Matt, who were, we were big into recording back then, even as much as we are today, and we sat and we'd watch that tape over and over and over again. It's like, wouldn't it be so nice if we could have that Pro Tools for us?
Let's get it. Let's just do it.
Just do it. And so I got it the day it came out. So, and I since long ago, got rid of it. But then, a couple years ago, or last year, I guess it was, I finally found another one from a buddy of mine who had one. And I bought the whole
George,
setup.
right?
Yeah, George.
George guy went up to Canada
George
with us.
Gonzalez. Happened to have one. That's not all I got from him, too.
No, man, you got hooked up.
Yeah, so he had this stuff like from a session he did with his rock band, long time ago, obviously. But he had the 001 with the G4 Mac and 2 Alesis ADATs, which I got from him. So
which Brian has one of them, right?
Yeah, Brian's got one of them right now. And
holding it hostage.
I remember like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, like, home studios and like project studios, everybody was using ADATs because that was before ADAT, like, you could get like it took $10,000-$15,000 to get an 8-track machine, digital machine, and then they introduced the ADAT, which was 8-track recorded on standard VHS tapes.
Mm-hmm.
You got 8 digital tracks at 16-bit, 44.1, I believe.
Right.
No, I don't think it was that. It was like 20. I don't know. It was a weird sample rate.
But you could do up to 48 on that, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, but like the default was like some odd. No, it was 16-bit and like, I don't know, 20-bit. It was 20-bit.
20-bit? That's kind of weird.
But like, and that was when that first came out. It was like $5,000 for 8 tracks of digital, as opposed to
$10,000.
Like a couple of years before that. $10,000 for.
And then the tape
tracks.
was like stupid expensive too. On top of that, right?
Yeah, for
instead of a VHS.
Yeah, I think Sony introduced like the first reel-to-reel digital multi-track, which was, I want to say 16 tracks, and that thing was almost $40,000 in the late 80s.
Wow.
And then less than 10 years later, you could build a 24-track digital, setup for, they were listed. They were like the suggested price for those ADATs was $5,000. Most people were selling those things for $3,000. So you could build a 24-track studio for like a small fraction of what the big boys were paying for the same thing.
And there's people that still use ADAT.
Oh, like of course, ADAT
tapes.
Absolutely.
Like, who was it? Brian was mixing an album. And he was waiting for these guys to send him the tracks because they mixed him to ADAT. They're still using. This was like last year, so like you couldn't even get the tracks. It's like, oh, could you send me the tracks? Like, yeah, we gotta get them off of our ADATs.
There's still a lot of studios out there that are working that are using ADAT.
Mm-hmm.
The whole reason like is not popular anymore. It's great quality, but it's linear. And that's the working with a computer, everything's non-linear, which means you can go to wherever
back and
you
forth
want
real quickly. Where
without having
they're
to rewind
literally
or fast
recording.
forward.
You're literally be kinding, please rewinding.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
to get where you need to go.
But what's cool about like playing with an ADAT is like you get that sense of like recording the old-fashioned way where you can't just jump to a section of a song.
Yeah.
You have a start and an end, and then you hit the record button, and the tape is still rolling. You know, even though it's digital, it's still rolling in the traditional way. You get it like a cool feeling. I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid, but you know, I dig that stuff.
I don't know how well I'd work in that. I mean, if it was the only thing that was available, I think I'd be able to work in that. But if I knew that, you know, the instant gratification of like just being able to be like, okay, this is the section we need to be at. All right, just play along with it. All right, record. You know, like I feel like that. If I just knew that was there, I'd be like,
yeah,
can we go do this in a different studio, please? Like,
yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I use them. I just have them because I like to look at them and like rub them a little bit and
record on them a
just
little
because,
bit. Just
you know,
press play and then rewind for about 20 minutes.
It's simply because, you know, when I was younger, that was a dream, you know, to be able to own something.
I can
like
understand that. Absolutely.
Because, you know, I was one of those guys that just didn't have any money. You know, I'm a guitar player. You know, I'm broke. Will be for the rest of my life. But, you know, to finally, at least, you know, even though it's 20 years later, have them in my closet, it's kind of a cool feeling. But I've also got I've got a 4-track like cassette recorder that I still use all the time.
Yeah.
Like I have a Tascam 424, and
those were a big deal when they came out too.
Oh yeah, they were enormous. Like a Tascam was like ruled the home recording market, you know, since the late 70s, you know, up to the mid 90s. And I still love that thing, man. I record on that thing all the time.
You got like the really expensive tape, like the what do they call, like
the metal tapes.
I was gonna say like actually metal tape.
Yeah, Type 2. And you can use a standard tape with it. If you use it at high speed, it sounds just fine. But you know the point of the metal tape, and it was the same way with like you know, if you, I mean it's not a special order thing. You could find them in any drugstore.
It's just more expensive.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Pretty considerably more expensive, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember if they were. Well, maybe you're right. Maybe they were quite a bit more. I never actually bought the metal ones when I was a kid. You know, I had the.
I guess they're kind of hard to find now.
Yeah, you know, you can still find them. You know, I find mine like on, you know, you can order them on Amazon.
Yeah.
You know, they're still there, and they're not super cheap, but they're not crazy either.
Yeah.